Is suing Lubbock ISD and one of its former teachers, claiming the teacher sexually assaulted her 3-year-old son in the classroom.
KCBD News Channel 11's Brittany Crittenden joins us now with the mother's attorney's arguments and the response from the district. Brittany?
Well, Karen and Abner, the lawsuit alleges pre-K3 teacher Samantha Reasoner sexually abused and assaulted the woman's son on more than one occasion last month during nap time at Nat Williams Elementary. It also claims the district is directly liable for her actions and failure to report the abuse.
When you meet with a family like this that has been through something so traumatic with their 3-year-old little boy, the way that those families look at you and tell you, I just don't want this to happen to someone else, makes all of this worth it.
Attorney Lainey Piercy says this lawsuit isn't about the money, but about holding Lubbock ISD and the teacher responsible. The suit claims the district knew of several safety concerns and issues related to Reasoner's performance as a teacher and allowed her to stay in the classroom.
We know that, for example, this pre-K3 classroom was out in a portable, and we know that since that classroom has since been moved inside, and that the administration at Nat Williams was trying to get that classroom moved inside because of safety concerns of this particular teacher.
Piercy says the family filed a report with the Lubbock ISD Police Department and CPS, then took civil action. The lawsuit alleges Lubbock ISD was negligent in hiring and supervising Reasoner and failed to report the abuse.
LISD has since terminated this individual, but instead of letting the parents know of the allegations against the teacher, the parents just let the families know that the teacher was terminated.
A district spokeswoman said as of this afternoon, the district hasn't received notice of the lawsuit. In a statement to KCBD, she said parents told leadership last week about concerns in a pre-K classroom at Nat Williams. She says the district took swift and appropriate action and communicated with parents, and the teacher involved is no longer employed by Lubbock ISD. Attorneys discussed the evidence they plan to use to back their suit.
We're not aware of any video evidence at this time. We are aware of multiple victims that have come forward and the outcries of multiple students that this abuse occurred.
What's interesting to note is that some of those allegations are very similar to what the child that we represent in this lawsuit has done. So that makes us believe that it's been ongoing for some time now.
They believe the lawsuit is about more than getting justice for this family, but maybe others. The district says an investigation is underway involving CPS, the Lubbock ISD Police Department, and the Lubbock Police Department. A report's also been made to the TEA. The district states because the investigation is ongoing, it won't be sharing any other information. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Britt.